This small emulation machine is made out of a Raspberry Pi Zero and a USB hub. Most of the work is cosmetic and will be focused on the outer shell of the case. First, we need to make an actual case for the Pi Zero and the USB hub to fit it in. This simple case will act as a support for the clay on the outside, which will have the actual shape. The inner case won't be seen, so let's just cut up some plastic to the right size and superglue it together to make a case. By setting everything on a flat surface while the glue cures, you make sure all the walls are perpendicular. When it has cured, you can just rip it apart and clean up. This case could have also been made much faster with a 3D printer. But this is an alternative way to give a case a specific shape. The actual shape will be given by molding some clay on the outside of the case. Note that it is really difficult to shape the clay in parallel walls, so we'll fix it later by sanding. Once the clay has cured, it will be separated from the plastic case and then secured back on it with epoxy. The case needs to have a closing mechanism. Let's add some scrap screw posts salvaged from a GameCube controller case. You just need to mind the layout of the components inside. Since the Raspberry Pi Zero will be in the way, we'll need to make one of the screw posts ourselves. Now that the case is functional, we can focus on making it look better. Sanding on a flat surface ensures you get flat case walls. Applying some Bondo helps with filling the small residual cracks and holes. Next, we will spray paint our case to give it its desired look. Painting can also help to correct small mistakes. Here, a first coat is sprayed on and then sanded. The goal is to make the surfaces as smooth as possible. Then, let's cut the holes to enable access to the ports on the Raspberry Pi Zero, and the holes to accommodate the USB ports. After that, and a little more sanding, a final coat of paint completes the build. Note that spray paint may dry pretty fast, but actually, it fully cures in 2 to 3 days. All that's left is to paint the small details with modeling paint, and then to assemble the components. Here, we want to bypass the USB ports to save some space. Luckily, the Pi Zero was built with this in mind. Some contacts are laid out on the board to solder to directly. There are only a few components to solder here. As always, make sure to map everything out with a multimeter beforehand. The USB hub used was designed for tablets. We need to make sure we give it both power and data connections, as they are split up in the intended use case. When the parts are soldered, hot glue them temporarily and make sure to test everything. Then, encase everything in a shower of epoxy resin, especially the USB ports. They usually go through a lot of stress when repeatedly inserting cables. Finally, let's just screw in both halves of the case and try out the emulation capacities of this small machine. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Music links can be found in the description.